So now you know that you're beautifully and you're wonderfully made. But you also know that you must be careful who your friends are. And then Liesel used to get so high on drugs. She lost job after job. She started pawning her TV and her video machine, and then, horror upon horror, she took a job as a topless dancer. Oh, you don't know what that does to a mother's heart and a father's heart. Liesel managed to give up heroin for a few months, but when she tried it again, she was hooked for life. She lived her life living from one fix to the next, wondering how she was going to pay for it. She now started lying and stealing from her friends, and she was so hooked on the drugs that she had to inject herself more and more frequently every single day. This was besides the drugs she sniffed and all the alcohol she drank. And as Richard said, she never stole from us. Never. In the meantime, Liesel had been in and out of 3 rehabs, and she had to go through the withdrawals. Every single time she came back to the drugs, she'd have to go through the whole withdrawal scene again. And withdrawal from drugs is a terrible, terrible thing. Your body convulses. Your body is craving the drug, that feeling that the drugs give you. The drugs made her feel normal, as we spoke about. But to go through that, I've seen her. She used to writhe with pain. It was terrible. There was one friend of mine's mother. She couldn't come off cocaine or heroin because she said every time she started her withdrawals, it felt as though her lungs had holes in them because she couldn't breathe. Every time she took a breath in, her lungs would not inflate because she couldn't also, again, be a normal person without taking these drugs. One evening, Liesel was really, and I will say she was really trying to come off the drugs. And she asked me to go to the beach with her to go and say goodbye to the drugs and smoke one more rock. And I said, no, Liesel, this has got to be cut off. I'm not going to go with you. I'm not going to help you. Cut off. And she got so angry, she turned around, walked out of the house. And within 10 minutes, Liesel was back. And she was as high as a kite. Where she got the drugs from, I don't know. But they know. They know everywhere where to get these things. She came in, and her sister was so angry with her. And she took Liesel's handbag and hit her with it. Liesel got so, she reacted. And Liesel took a glass like this, a Velcro glass, which is a very thick, it's a bottle that's actually been cut, the bottom's been cut off, and it's been stuck at the bottom of the bottle and made into a glass. And she took this glass and she smashed it on the table. And she took that broken glass and she stuck herself in the neck. And she severed her vein, her artery. And the blood was just pumping out of Liesel's neck. We got the paramedics to come in because we didn't know what to do. And they tried to give her a Valium injection. And what happened was they couldn't find a vein because all Liesel's veins had collapsed from the drugs. So they had to put a Valium under her tongue for her to calm down. But she grabbed the needle from the paramedics and she said, give it to me, give it to me. I'll find a vein, I'll find a vein. And she took that needle and she stuck it under her fingernail. She couldn't get a vein there. She stuck it underneath her toenail. She stuck it in her groin to try and get a vein. But Liesel could not find a vein. She had to be rushed to the hospital and eventually they had to stitch her up. And from that day onwards, Liesel wore a choker around her neck because she had stitches around her that she didn't want anyone to see. One night, Liesel was picked up on the main road Sea Point by the police, and she had cocaine and she had heroin, and the police wanted to put her in jail, but she made a bargain with them. She said, "I'll help you catch some drug lords, some pushers. I'll help you catch them if you keep me out of jail, please." So they did just that. They put her in a flat. Liesel was wired, very dangerous. If she had been caught out, she would have been murdered on the spot, I am sure. But they put a wire on her. The police were in the next room, and she said, "If I say this certain word, then you know we've got them." And they had her, as I say, she was wired, and they heard everything, the conversation. And that night they caught 3 pushers, 3 of them. So Liesel had to disappear for quite a long time, because otherwise she would have been found out where she lived, and they would have killed her.
They actually put a story out in Sea Point that she'd been murdered, which would explain the fact that she was not there anymore. But she disappeared up the coast, and she was there for about 6 months,
Yes.
6 months or a year.
Yes. In the meantime, Liesel had come back, and one evening we were having a lovely braai, and she found out that her boyfriend was pushing drugs, and she was really trying again for the 4th time to try and come off and to stop. So she was so angry with her boyfriend. He was so scared of her, he locked himself in the bathroom, and she tried to kick the door down. And Richard said to her, "Liesel, stop shouting." So she turned around and he started shouting at me. And then Richard had to give her a smack across her face, because she was so out of it. She was so hysterical.
She was hysterical.
Yes, she had been drinking, and we all had a glass of wine that night, but Liesel had drugs and she was drinking. And she got hysterical, so he gave her a smack on her face to bring her around. And she turned around and she walked to the kitchen. We thought nothing of it. We had just carved chicken we were going to eat. Liesel came walking down the passage back into the bedroom, and she had a dishcloth over her hand, over her arm. And the next minute she lunged forward in front of Richard. We thought nothing of it. He didn't feel a thing. And then all of a sudden the blood started coming out. The blood started pouring like pieces of liver down the passage. He was absolutely in a state. She had stabbed him. She had stabbed him.
This is the actual knife that Liesel stabbed me with. And you know, I thank God for that time that this happened. Because for us, for Denise and I, this was you could say it was a burning bush experience. Because this is what brought us to God. I was stabbed. I spent 3 weeks at the Milnerton Mediclinic in the ICU, 3 weeks in ICU, because I got septicemia. And you can see from the photograph what I looked like after some of the operations. And today I look like a shark attack victim. But I thank God for that, because that is what woke us up. That is what brought us to God. God was saying, "Hello, I'm here." And you know what? We were ignoring Him. We were ignoring Him. And sometimes God has to do drastic things to get our attention. And that's why I call it a burning bush experience. And since that day, and that was in 2001, the 13th of November 2001, we have never looked back. And today we serve God with a passion, and really we thank Him every day for our lives.
Amen. Well, after that, Liesel disappeared for months before she came back to apologize, because we actually went to the police station and laid a charge against her. Richard did that. The police said that we must do that because we were trying to help her, to stop her on this path of destruction that she was on. She disappeared, and when she came back to apologize, all was forgiven.
And I must say that, I nearly died because of what Liesel did to me. But I know that it wasn't Liesel that was doing it. It was the drugs and the drink, because she was drunk that night as well. But I just want to say, people would come to me and say, "Oh, how can you forgive her for doing something like that to her, to you?" And you know what? It was the easiest thing in the world, because I had the Lord in my life. And through the strength that He gave me, through the wisdom that He gave me, I was able to forgive Liesel. And really, all we wanted to do was to try and help her get through this and get over this drug thing. But I was able to forgive with everything that I was, my whole heart, only because God allowed me to.
The Lord's Prayer goes like this: forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. We set ourselves free by forgiving somebody else. And from then on, Liesel really, really tried so hard to get off the drugs, and she told us she wasn't doing it anymore. But on the 4th of April, 2003, we got a phone call from her boyfriend telling us that Liesel had overdosed on heroin. Her boyfriend had found her dead next to him. He gave her mouth to mouth, and he got her heart beating again. Liesel was put into the ICU in the Somerset Hospital. And by the time, I think it was the third day, she was almost back to normal. It was amazing. We went to go and visit her. And all she wanted to do, she wanted to come to church. That's all she said. "Mommy, I want to come out of here. I want to come to church with you." And that to me was so amazing. Only God could have done that. Because from a full-blown drug addict to wanting to come to God, He had done something in her life. He got her attention. And on the third day, it was the 8th of the 4th, 03, we were visiting Liesel, and we were in the ward, and God said to me, "Say this in His prayer with her." And I said, "But God, she won't want to know you." And I went to her, and I said to her, "Liesel, do you want to accept Jesus?" And she said yes. And that night, she accepted the Lord in her life. And early hours of the next morning, about 6 o'clock, one of the patients next to her said she sat up, straight up in bed. She started shouting, "Help me, help me. I can't see, I can't see. I'm going blind." And then she couldn't speak. And Liesel went into a coma for 3 weeks.